What did you learn about the power of social media last year?
I think what we saw was an incredibly well planned and orchestrated campaign which combined a range of social media and lobby groups which were able to kick in at their designated point when the buttons were pushed. It also demonstrated the power of the volume of response, volume of protest that can be generated at at a click of a mouse, effectively. I think it's also put social media in a different context. It's raised the awareness of social media for what is an industry that's largely sort of focused on getting out and doing their job and doing it very well. I think it was a wake-up call for the industry.
Because you guys it was like a masterclass in how to use social media, wasn't it? And
Absolutely.
You, unfortunately, were the recipients of it.
And I think one of the reactions has been, let's engage with social media, let's really maximise it as an avenue for getting information out effectively and quickly. I think there's also a line of caution that needs to be brought with that. It's about also putting out the right information. So while it can be a very powerful medium for getting information out quickly, it could also be the wrong information. It could be misinformation, it could be misguided information, it could paint the industry or whatever the issue is in completely the wrong light, depending who are the vectors for that information. So there's a note of caution. We have to be very careful how we use it, and we have to make sure that we put the right messages out there, and we make sure that people have got the right tools to be able to do it properly.
Can you remember back to how you felt in that first week or two as you watched on Twitter or heard about the results of Twitter and Facebook? What did it feel like? Because you wouldn't have experienced that before.
I think we saw a combination of media. So social media was obviously effective, but we still saw the mainstream media play a critical role. So, we saw things come through the TV screen initially, and a great deal of shock was created through that. We then saw the print media and other media coming on stream with the 24-hour cycle, and we saw that cycle move from producers being bad, industry being bad, the bad guys. Within probably a week, when we got past the animal welfare to the human welfare, I think that the mainstream media still played a critical role in that, and social media then started to kick in. But I think they both still have their place. But what we do know is that the new generation, the younger generation, are increasingly using social media as their primary way of communicating. And that in itself makes it powerful, but it also makes it a medium we have to be very careful how we use it and how we educate the resources we provide to people using it so that they put the right information out. So it's a tool, and we have to have a license, we have to have a ticket to operate it. And I think that's important. That's what the industry can do is power up the social media by empowering those producers who are, at the end of the day, the ones who have the greatest opportunity to interface with the broader Australian public and do what people talk about, which is to try and break the divide that exists, re-engage. And I think it comes from both ways. I think we also need to understand ourselves before we can, reach out and engage. We assume that everybody wants to, like farmers, or everybody should like farmers because we do all these, wonderfully noble things, producing food, feeding both Australians and people overseas. But a lot of Australians probably don't necessarily, naturally, have a great affinity with that. So we can't assume that reconnecting with urban Australia is easy. We have to have some messages. We have to be relevant. We have to understand ourselves first. And before I think we can be effective in communicating.
Since the live export suspension last year, more farmers are on Twitter, more farmers are blogging and using YouTube. Do you think if live exports blew up again or another issue did, are farmers and industry ready or better placed to deal with any social media onslaughts from animal rights groups?
Yeah. I think it's probably fair to say we've moved a long way. I mean, there's no doubt if we look back 12 months ago, in many ways, not only just having a regulatory system under live export, but also having, I suppose, greater access into the social media, we've moved a long way. I think at the national level, we still have to provide leadership, whether it's using whatever media it might happen to be. We have to be able to provide a strong national, singular focus on whatever that issue is, and the primary industry sector hasn't always been particularly good at that, and I think last year we learned quite a few things. So clearly, whatever media we're using, we have to be very strong and we have to get our messages through clearly. So I think we've probably still got some improvement to be had in some of those areas. But I think at the end of the day, we have to engage our own people to engage in our own industry. Communicating outside is important, but communicating within is also very important. So I think social media has a role to play internally in communicating. Today we're at Beef Week, and you know, there's some most amazing things going on. I've put my phone away, and you're talking to people, and you often forget to send out vital information. I do know some people who are sending out very vital information. They're hearing things, they're watching things, they're sending out little grabs of what might be a speech somebody makes, and sometimes it can be quite easy to read a grab and get a picture quite quickly of what's going on. But you need to be focused on that. Sometimes we get distracted.
So do you tweet much?
I think I've looked at my phone, and it's something I did to understand what it was about. So I wouldn't say I'm an obsessive tweeter, but I certainly have tweeted a few times. You feel a bit self-conscious at times to sort of say, oh well, I've just got off the tram in Melbourne. Well, big deal. So I think it's more about being targeted in what you do, and I think having an understanding of how it works, and when things are important that you need to get a message out quickly, I think that's what it's about. You know, to get it out fast and get the right message out quickly, right some wrongs if need be, or simply inform about something that's happening or something that might be happening. So I think it's quite powerful if we use it the right way.